Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jonah May Juarez, one of the group member of Group 8 who assigned to report about the annotation of Dr. Antonio de Sucesos de Las Islas Filipinas. The book of Morga's Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas is the historical events of the Philippines Islands in publishing Mexico in 1605 to provide European leader information about the Philippines. The book documented events during Spanish colonial period in the Philippines as observed by the author himself. Moreover, the book also includes Filipino customs, traditions, manners, religious during the Spanish conquest. Let us define first the key term of the annotation and successors. Annotation, a short explanation or note added to a text or image, or an act of adding short explanation. Successos, work of an honest observer, a versatile bureaucrat who knew the working of the administration from inside. Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas was written by Antonio de Morga. Who is Antonio de Morga? Antonio de Morga Sanchez Garay, November 29, 1559 to July 21, 1636, was a Spanish soldier, lawyer, and high-ranking colonial official for 40 years in the Philippines from 1594 to 1604, New Spain and Peru, where he was president on real audiencia for 20 years. He was also historian. He published the book Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas in 1609, considered one of the most important works of the early history of the Spanish colonization of the Philippines. The annotation of Rizal consisted 8 chapters, in which of first 7 chapters tell about the events of first 11 governor-general in the Philippines, starting from Legazpi to Aconia. The last chapter focused on costume and usages of the Filipinos. He noted of 3 categories, namely anti-critical, sociological, and historical. Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas. Modern historians, including Rizal, have notes that Morga has definite bias and would often distort facts or even rely on invention to fit his defense on the Spanish conquest. What leads Jose Rizal to Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas? First, Rizal was an earnest seeker of truth. This marked him as a historian. Second, he had a burning desire to know exactly the condition of the Philippines when the Spaniards came ashore to the islands. Third, his theory was that the country was economically self-sufficient and prosperous. Fourth, he believed that the conquest of the Spaniards contributed in a part to the decline of Philippines' rich tradition and tradition. In 1889-1890, Rizal spent several months in London to do his historical research on pre-colonial Philippines and improve his English language skill. According to Dr. Ferdinand Blumentritt, the Spanish historian Dr. Antonio Morga, who wrote Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, which was published in Mexico in 1609. Rizal laboriously hand-copied the whole 351 pages of the Sucesos. He shifted, weight, evaluated each and every proof he could find in book, manuscript, document, and other records from the vast British Museum Filipiniana collection. Rizal entertained the idea that it had a lively and vigorous community enriched with the collective and sensitive art and culture and native population. Rizal's first consideration for the choice of Morga. Number 1, the original book was rare. Number 2, Morga is a layman, not a religious chronicler. Number 3, Rizal felt Morga to be more objective than the religious writer who included many miracle stories. Three kinds of Spanish delusion about the Philippines. Number 1, Filipinos were an inferior race. Number 2, Filipinos were not ready for parliamentary representation and other reforms. Number 3, denial of equal rights can be compensated by strict dispensation of justice. Two categories in Rizal annotation. Rizal, number 1, Rizal corrects the original, the one is the straightforward, historical annotation. Number 2, historical base reflect his anti-critical bias. According to Guerrero 1998, Rizal annotation Morga successes has three main propositions. Number 1, awaken the consciousness of the Filipinos of their glorious way of the past. Number 2, has been distorted about the Philippines due to the Spanish conquest. Number 3, prove that Philippines are civilized even before the coming of the Spaniards.